Your world is waiting, but first you have to access it. Welcome to the Joshua Roy Show. We don't do fluff, we do freedom. Real talk on mindset, cutting-edge coaching techniques, and the hidden frameworks for lasting change. If you're ready to move from being stuck to becoming the architect of your life, you're ready for this. Hit subscribe. Let's get to work. Today I did a seminar, the first day of a 2-day seminar, and a bit of a sore throat, 8 hours of talking. So it was a lot about relationships and how to create a relationship filled with love and passion. What I'm going to share with you today is just an introduction to that. The rest of the seminar is tomorrow, but what I'm going to share with you is just an introduction to that so that you can get an idea of what it is that we do and how I help people to move their life forward. Now, the focus today and tomorrow is going to be a relationship vision, because I've come to realize that that is the most important part of all of this. All this talk about relationship, which is wonderful and great, but it's only going to be beneficial for you, for me, for everyone who attends this course, who listens to these recordings. It's only going to be beneficial if you have a vision. And that vision needs to be strong, needs to be compelling. Because what we want is we want pull motivation. We don't want push motivation. We don't have to push ourselves to do more, to be more. We want to be pulled towards our goals. We want to be pulled towards the desired outcome that we want. We want to be pulled towards that relationship that we desire, the relationship that's filled with love and passion. And so really think of today as just a deep dive and a focus on relationships. That's all it is. It's just focusing back, saying, okay, you've got other things in your life. You've got your health. You've got to be at the gym. I can see that, Sanjay, you're there working out. And it's wonderful to have you here. So you're working out, all right? And you're looking after your body, looking after your health. Amazing. Fantastic. You've got to focus on that. You've got to focus on it in order to get results. And you've got to build up habits of behavior around that, because if you do something once, it's not going to benefit you. But if you do it consistently, well, now you're getting the benefit. Now you're getting the ongoing training you need to get your body into phenomenal shape. So you've got exercise, and then we've got other areas of our life, like our finances. And we need to work, and we need to have investments, and we need to understand the laws and principles of finances and wealth. And that's all good and great. You've got to put in the effort. You've got to put in the focus. Now with relationships, it's no different. We've got to focus in on relationships. We've got to focus in on what matters most. And that is creating a vision, a shared vision. So we're going to talk about vision in two parts today. The first part of the vision will be, firstly, I've got to have a vision for myself. What do I want in my relationship? And then secondly, when I've got a lover to share my life with, now we're going to create a shared vision together. And so today, whether you're single, whether you're in a relationship, it's going to be beneficial, because what we're going to do is work on both of those. We're going to work on, yes, your individual vision for your relationship, but then also a shared vision. And more than that, we want to start working with the tools. We want to start getting it into your mind, into your unconscious mind. I'll start with this. Deanna, a coaching client, came along to see me years ago. So this was a decade ago when I first started coaching. Before that I was thinking, well, I'm not ready, I don't know enough. And yet I knew some tools that actually worked. They'd worked in my life, they'd worked for others. So Deanna came to see me, and I was all fired up about this idea of coaching. And she was one of my very first clients, and I was very excited to be able to help her change her life. And I had some tools that I could use. And one of those specific tools is strategic visioning. And strategic visioning is a way of seeing the future in your mind's eye using the faculty of your imagination. And what you do is you go out into the future and you don't just see it, but you experience it. You want to get emotionally connected to that vision of what you see in the future. And so I had to close her eyes, and I had to go all the way out into the future, about 12 months into the future, and she was able to see herself in a relationship. Now, a lot of coaches talk about this idea of manifesting. You manifest the future you want into your life in the present. So it's about manifesting. It's a creative word that simply connotes the idea of us bringing something from the future into the present. Manifesting is this idea that we can create in our imagination and then feel it in our body and in our emotions to such a degree that we feel as though it's real, that it's already occurred, that it's happened, that it just is. And once we get that set up in a person's mind and heart, then it becomes effortless and easy to create, because it's as though the conscious mind has already done it. It's although it's already been, as though it's already been achieved. What we then do is we dissociate. So we've got that vision, then we dissociate from the vision, and we get those emotions in our body. Now, the beautiful thing about Deanna was she looked forward into a future. She saw the back of a man's head. She saw her with this man. She saw them together. She saw them united, a force together, one, united in all things. And when she saw that, she didn't see his face, and that was quite interesting. Didn't know exactly what he looked like, but she saw the back of his head. She had her arm around him. His arm was around her. They were together. And she felt it emotionally. She saw it visually. And with that, she came back into the present and she was excited. Now, before doing that process, she had given me a few concerns. And her concerns were, well, I've got 3 daughters. So who would want me? Like, who's going to want to take on all of this excess baggage that comes with me? And so that's what, and she was thinking as well, and I'm getting older. And other concerns she had was, and I lack some of the confidence I need. I'm not like I was when I was a young teenager, and the world was ahead of me, and I was young, and I was had all this energy, and I was happy and excited. Well, now I've got all these other things in my life that I've got to think about. I've also got an ex-husband who's putting demands and pressure there. And so a person who takes me on is going to have to deal with that. And so she listed all of these worries, all of these concerns. And you might be thinking in your own mind, well, I have concerns too. I'm too young. I'm too old. Maybe I don't know enough. Maybe I'm not ready. Maybe I'm just not marriage material. Whatever it is. Maybe I'm beyond that. Maybe somebody who takes me on is going to have to deal with all of my health issues and my emotional issues and my, sometimes, mental health issues or whatever else we've got going on. And so you start thinking about this, and the more you start thinking about it, the more you can box yourself in to this thought, this idea that who would want me? Like, who would want me with all these problems, with all these challenges? Who would possibly want me? And that's Deanna. That's where she was. Now, the beautiful thing was when she saw that vision, when she beheld it, when she felt and experienced it, something shifted, something clicked in her brain, and she was able to go after it. She was able to say, you know what? I'm going to grab the bull by the horns. I'm going to rip the door off the hinges. I'm going to go for it, because she came back from that process excited. She was excited, thinking it's going to work. Like, there was no if, buts, or maybe. It was a definite. She'd gone from someone who was feeling, you could say, a little bit hopeful, like, I hope it works out. But most of her was worse than that. Most of her was stuck in, there's 3 conditions. You could say fear, laziness, but mostly limited self-belief. So when we think about the resistors to success, that's what they are. Fear, laziness, and limited self-belief. Now, she wasn't lazy, not a lazy person. She was just focused in a different direction, focused in a different way. Fear, absolutely. Who would want me? She was fearful. Limited belief. Once again, who would want me? So fear, laziness, limited belief, a little part of her was hopeful. And with that small part of her that was hopeful, well, we took that because she elected to get some coaching. And we said, well, let's take that little part of you that's got that glimmer of hope, and let's convert that into something different. And that's exactly what we did. So we converted that into absolute belief and certainty. Total belief, absolute certainty that she could and would create that relationship. Now, that's Deanna's story. Deanna's story is Who would want me? I'm a single mum. I've got 3 young daughters. Who would want me? 2, I know it's going to happen. I've seen it. I've seen it in my mind's eye. And because I've seen it in my mind's eye, now my mind, my body, my spirit, my soul, everything believes it's true. And with that belief, she now speaks differently. She now communicates differently. She now carries herself differently. Even the way she carries her body, her frame, her mindset, everything's completely different. Everything has changed. And it just so happened that within months, she'd attracted a person into her life that was perfect for her. And today they're in a relationship. And now we're going on 8 to 9 years later. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that incredible? Like, to me, that is the most, and this was like right at the beginning of my coaching career when I thought, is it possible for someone to manifest a lover? Is that possible? And Deanna's experience showed me that it's real. It's true. Not just Deanna. I've seen this time and time again. Helena, even Michelle, others that I've done this process with, they've attracted a person into their world, into their life. And I just think it's amazing. So I coach people in a number of things. I coach people on finances and business, and I coach people on health, and I coach people on spirituality, direction, purpose, finding out, what's my life about? But inevitably, everything comes back to relationships. Why? Why do you think that? Why do you think? Because relationships, that's the juice of life. That's what life all comes back to. So when you're in your deathbed, and think about this, you're going to lie one day in a bed, maybe in the hospital, maybe at home, and you'll be there taking your last breaths. This was a recent experience for me. I stood by my father's bedside. I held his hand, I cupped it, and I looked at him, and I was there when he took his final breath. This is my dad, who'd raised me from being a small child, and I loved my dad. And I'm holding him, I'm cupping his hand, and he's taking his last few breaths. Now, at this point, he wasn't thinking much of anything because he had medication in his system and other things. But before that, rewind the clock just a couple of days. And guess what he was all about? He was all about the people that he loved. He wasn't caring about how much money he made during his life. He didn't care about how successful he was as a businessman. He didn't care about other things in his life that were less important. You know what he cared about? What it all came back to? His wife, his children, the people that he cared about most in this life, the people that he loved. That's what he cared about. That's what he was talking about. That's what he was thinking about. Yes, he expressed that he was in pain and agony. Yes, he expressed his suffering. But what did he care about? He cared about family. And I want you to think about that. Project yourself forward to that time in your life, because it's going to happen for all of us. Like, we know this. We know that eventually every one of us is going to draw a final breath. And I'm not saying that to scare you, to put the fear of God in you necessarily. I'm just saying that as a reality of life. Life and death go hand in hand. They work together. Everything is born, everything dies. That's a reality of the world we live in. This is the reality of mortality. So we live this life. So here we are, and think about it. When you're at that stage of your life, I want you to think about this. What will you be remembered for? Will you be remembered as someone who made a lot of money? You're the businessman that everyone went wow to. You're an entertainer. You were this, you were that. What I want to be remembered for is as a good father, a loving husband. What I want to be remembered for is the relationships that mattered most. And if you are successful in business, it's not about the money you make, but really think of it this way. The money you get from business is a reflection of how much you've helped others succeed. And if you think about money that way, is if I help enough other people get what they want, and if you help enough other people get what they want, then you will surely get more of what you want. And so even in business, it's relationships. It's relationships. And why do we look after our health? Well, why do we make sure that we're vibrant and strong? Why do we get on the treadmill? Why do we do this? Why are we getting the energy in our body? The energy is so that we can create more. And what do we want to create? Success in business? Sure. We want to create success but really, Success in business is a reflection of the relationships that you have, the business relationships that you make. And the health that you want really should be utilized in creating and designing the relationship that you want. So to me, the whole game is the game of relationships. So with that in mind, it worked for Deanna and it will work for you. Let's just believe that. Let's start from this place that if I set it up today, and this is what we're going to do today and tomorrow, you and I are going to create a phenomenal relationship in our mind, in our heart. We're going to see a vision of that relationship. When we see that vision of that relationship, now what we're going to do is we're going to enlist and enroll our unconscious mind to make that happen. We're going to go all out at visualizing. We're going to go all in when it comes to feeling the emotions of what that's going to be like. And then we're going to put the effort into producing the steps necessary, the strategies and the stories we need to hold in our mind to make it happen. How does that sound? So that's what we're doing. So this is going to be for you, those of you who decided to be here, to attend. This is going to be a change, the change that you have potentially desired your whole life. We're going to create it and it's going to be wonderful. It's going to be amazing. So I ask you and invite you to stick with me. Let's work together to create that vision. So there's two things, an individual vision and also a shared vision. My wife always loves it when I start doing relationship courses. She loves it. She says I'm more attentive. I pay more attention. Our relation inevitably gets better. Why? Well, it happens when you focus on the principles of relationship. That's what happens. You start focusing on relationships and guess what? Your relationship improves. You focus on other areas, on business, on work, on health, and you put all of your energy there and you find that sometimes the balance can be lost. I don't know who's felt this. Just drop yes in the comments if you felt that. You felt your life has been out of balance at times because of the different focuses of your life. And so what we're doing now is we're saying, hey, don't forget relationships. In fact, let's make relationships a priority, if not the priority, for your life. Think about the end of your life. Think about where you're going to be. And when you're lying on that bed, and I remember holding Dad's hand, and I remember he was taking a breath, and I felt that something was going to happen. And I said, Dad, it's time to go home. It's time to go home. Now, my dad was a believer in the afterlife. So he had a strong belief that the spirit and the nature of the spirit is eternal. He had a very strong belief on that. It's quite interesting when I listened to, he did a testimony, you could say, for his children and his grandchildren, his belief about the eternal nature of the spirit. And it was very powerful, the things that he said. And he said, I'm not afraid to die. That's what he said. He said, I'm not afraid. He said, I'm afraid of going through the process. I really don't want to go through that. I'd love to skip that part of it. But he said, as far as going there, and you know what else he said? He said he was excited to be reunited with his brother. He had a brother that passed on several years ago. So Dad passed away about a year ago. His brother passed away about 3 or 4 years earlier before that. And he said that he was excited to meet up with his brother again. And so think about it. Even as he's approaching this time in his life, he's thinking about what? Relationships. And relationships on this side of the veil, you could say, in mortality, and relationships beyond the veil, on the other side, in the afterlife. And so once again, the focus, the thoughts, everything was about relationships. So just get your mind around that. Let's start with that. Let's start thinking that this idea of relationships, it is, I believe, the most important thing in life. I've often heard it said, and I actually heard one religious leader say this, and I agree with it. He said these words. He said that no success in life can compensate for failure in the home. And that was just his way of telling everyone how important relationships are, how important being, in an intimate relationship is. It's the thing that makes us more of who we need to be. Like it's going to excel the progress in your life faster than if you're alone, than if you're single. You're with somebody. Now your growth begins to happen. Now you start to not just understand, but have an intimate relationship with the masculine and the feminine energies and how they work together. And we're going to talk about all of that with this seminar. All right, so today, what we're looking at today is we're going to start with what we call the chemistry of love. And this is what we need to understand as we get started. There's a chemical component to love. It's chemistry. Then we move from there into creating a relationship vision. And so the second part of today, we're going to look at the vision. Create the vision, the ideal vision and future for you. Because put it this way, there's no way to predict the future unless you create it. There's no way to predict it. Like, how can we predict what's going to happen tomorrow, next week, next month, unless we create it in the faculty of our imagination? This is what great sports people have done for years. This is what, through life and results coaching, has moved into the business world. Now, this is relatively new. We're only talking the last 40 to 50 years that executives of companies, that high performance individuals are actually using these tools and skills with business. So we started off in sport. That was the first one. You want to hit a ball clear down the driveway in golf. Well, you first of all see it in your imagination before you take the swing. If you want to hit that 3-pointer and your name is Steph Curry in basketball, you play for the Golden State Warriors, and now you want to get that basket to sink, well, you see it first in your imagination. And then you practice it in private so that you can deliver it in public. So this idea in sports is not new. It's been used for eons. It's been used for probably centuries when it comes to sport. When it comes to business, it's a relatively new thing, because what they've done is they've said, well, if it works there, why can't it work cross contexts? Why can't we use what they've been doing in sport in other arenas? Why can't we use it in other ways? And so now it's entered into the business world. More than that, people are now using it with their health. They're using it in other ways. And what we're going to do is use these tools and skills to drive your relationship forward. We're going to use it to create and design your ideal relationship, to see it, to visualize it, to experience it, to feel it emotionally, and then to feel that pull towards what it is that we want. So I'm really excited for you today. I know it's going to work. This is powerful because we're not just relying on your intellect. We're not just relying on your brain to do it. Because the brain, as good as it is and as high functioning as it is, your brain is also deceptive. Your brain is also a liar. Your brain quite often gets in the way. The critical faculty stops us. Your fears, your anxieties, your thoughts betray you. Just drop yes if you've experienced that. Your thoughts betraying you. Who's had that experience? Like you start on a road or a path and then you have this thought pop in your head, it's not going to work. So here we get this desire for change. We start moving in the right direction, but then these thoughts pull us off track. And it's your thoughts that we need to override. We want to go past the thinking, past the cognitive challenges that we have, and we want to move to the heart, but more importantly, we want to move to the nervous system. So that's where we're going today. We're going to tomorrow we'll be looking at intimacy in your relationship, and also further on we'll be looking at the next thing, which is passion, and how to create a relationship filled with love and passion. And then at the end of the last day, we're going to tie it all together with some processes. Now, just before we go any further, goal setting works. It works. It just does. Goal setting helps you to get focused on what you want. It helps you get rid of distractions. It helps you to pinpoint the exact and identify the exact target you're after. And it helps you hit a target. without goals. So I think about it as vision being the big picture. And then we scale back to the goal. The goal will lead you to your vision. And then we scale back to the task. And the task or the tasks completed will help you achieve your goal. And the goals completed will help you achieve your vision. So that's kind of how I think about it. It's a forward-stepping process. But what we do is we begin with the end in mind. We don't just start with tasks. We don't just get a task list and tick them off. Because what are we doing in that situation? Let me tell you a quick story. There was two men side by side. And one man was laying bricks. And the second man was doing the same job. They're both doing the same job. And one of them was miserable. He was there. He had a frown on his face. It was hot in the sun. He was working and slaving away, and he was miserable. And then the second man was excited. He had a big smile on his face. He was energized. He was almost running to get the next brick. He was working fast. He was doing all that he could. And so somebody went up to the first man and they said, "What are you doing?" And he simply looked up and said, "What does it look like I'm doing? What, are you blind? Are you stupid?" And the guy said, "No, just tell me, what are you doing?" And he said, "I'm laying bricks. What do you think?" Like, seriously, you just stand there and watch for a moment, you'll work it out. So that was his response. Now, he walked over to the second man and he said, "What are you doing?" Now, remember, this man was excited. He's happy. He's smiling. He's getting the next bit. He's working fast. And he said, "What are you doing?" And you know what he said? He said, "I'm building a cathedral." I'm building a cathedral. So you get the idea? And this is the way we've got to think. So when we do those tasks, if you don't have a vision, then the tasks are almost meaningless. You're just running through a list of to-do items. And I'm sure we've all been there, where you go through that task list and you're like bored out of your head. Why? Because you're focused on the task. You're focused on, I've got to send this email. I've got to respond to that. I've got to make this phone call. Those are the mundane tasks that we do. But where's your focus? And if your focus is on the here and now, which, many people will tell you, well, that's where it needs to be focused, and I agree. But if you don't have a vision set up for your life, if you don't have a vision that's pulling you excitedly towards an outcome, then what are you doing? Well, you've got low energy. What are you doing? You're stagnating. What are you doing? You're wasting your time, much of the time. I mean, some of it will get you progress, but let's realize this, that not all activity is progress. Sometimes it's just activity. What we want to do is turn our activity into progress. So that's what we're doing with this course, with this program. We're beginning with the end in mind. We're getting the vision so set, so strong, that we're going to be then pulled towards it. And those tasks that you have, well, instead of doing them as a mundane, boring, optional activity, instead you can get excited about that because you realize that the tasks that you're doing are leading you towards your goal achievement. And the goals that you create are leading you towards the vision realization. And that's what we want. We want to make sure that we're living fully, living completely. Does that sound good to you? Sounds good to me. I'm getting excited just thinking about it. I mean, this to me is everything when it comes to this work, the work of personal development. It's about creation. It's about design. It's about identity by design. We design our identity and then we live into it. We see the vision and we always begin with the end in mind. So that's where we're going to start today. With that vision, we're going to go the chemistry of love. Then we're going to move into the vision and we're going to set that up. And when we get to that vision part, I want you to be ready to start writing. I want you to write down your ideal vision. And what we're going to do is we're going to shoot for the stars. I want you to start thinking more grandiose, if you can. Now, I do goal setting a couple of different ways. For somebody who always gets what they want, I say make your goal grandiose, stretch it. For someone who feels like they never get what they want, well, sometimes we can scale it back a little bit and get smaller, achievable goals until you start getting that track record of success and that momentum, because that's going to help you then continue on. Most importantly, we're going to set up that vision. It's going to be bright. It's going to be compelling. We're going to use what's called the rubber band effect. The rubber band effect is something I haven't spoken about for a long time, actually. But the rubber band effect is when a person gets a vision that's so strong and compelling, and imagine that you get a giant rubber band, and not those little thin rubber bands, but the thick ones, the really strong ones. You get a giant rubber band, you wrap that around yourself and your goal, and then feel yourself being pulled towards it. Feel yourself. Did I say feel yourself? Feel yourself being pulled towards it. And so that's the rubber band effect, is we're using pull motivation rather than push motivation. You don't want to push yourself out of bed. You don't want to push yourself to get excited and energized. You want to pull yourself towards that. And that's what this course is going to help us do. How good was that? This was the first part of the 2-day course. This was just the introduction. And I hope you got something out of it. I hope you got excited about the possibility of you creating a relationship filled with love and passion. Now, if you enjoyed this seminar, what you might want to do is sign up for the next 2-day relationship course. I do live events constantly, and you can get those live events, attend, and change your life in real time. Your commitment to yourself should be to discover who you really are. Unlock your incredible self and unleash that on the world. So thanks for being here today. Thanks for spending some time with me, and I look forward to seeing you at the next episode.